Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Mike Corey, KI1U. I'll be your moderator for tonight, and I think Ward's working on is getting the presentation up as we go. So just a couple housekeeping items to start with. Yes, we are recording this, and yes, it will be available later. It will be on the YouTube channel, the League's YouTube channel, sometime later this week. We got to get it down to the media manager for him to get it tidied up and ready to put online. We will take questions as we go. Use the ask question feature within the GoToWebinar application. And as Ward's presenting, I'll kind of take the questions, and then we'll take some breaks as we go, and I'll filter those over to Ward. So it's my honor tonight to introduce our guest presenter, Ward Silver, N0AX. Many of you know him, and I pulled a few of his credentials off his QRZ page just to get everybody a little familiar with his background, which is a rather impressive one. Ward is the lead editor for the ARRL Handbook and Antenna Handbook. A few pretty serious feathers in his cap. He's a 2003 recipient of the Bill Orr Technical Writing Award, 2008 Dayton Hamvention Amateur of the Year. In 2015, he was inducted to the CQ Contest Hall of Fame. Ward is the president of the YASME Foundation, and he is active with St. Charles Amateur Radio Club, WB0HSI, and active in local Aries Rapid Response Team. And probably better known as the player of the mandolin and vocals for the Spurious Emissions Band. If you haven't had a chance to see them, well worth seeing. And he is the author of the Ham mystery book, Ray Tracy's Zone of Iniquity. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ward, and I'll stand by for questions, and I'll be back on later. Ward, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks. Do you can see the first slide and everything's okay, correct?
Yes, you're all set.
Okay, well, I've been working out here in my Radio Fitness Center. Oh boy, just a little castanets here. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up this evening. Mike, you didn't mention Ham Radio for Dummies, which is a possible book for the newcomer, and seems to have really helped people get used to the hobby. So that was first edition in 2004, and then I updated it a few years ago. And maybe I've got some graduates of the Ham Radio for Dummies course out there. Anyway, welcome. Let's move right along here. Give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about. This presentation was first made at the Orlando Hamcation at the beginning of this year, and it got a lot of positive feedback, and said, well, you really ought to bring this to a wider audience. So I beefed it up a little bit, and part of my background is, as Mike talks about, the ARRL. I'm active in the current ARRL group here in St. Charles, and when I lived on Vashon Island in the state of Washington near Seattle, I was the island EC and helped organize both the community and the Ham Club into Vashon Be Prepared, and a very robust group, W7 Victor Mike India, which is still very active today. So I've been involved in ARRL for about 20-25 years, and during that period had a lot of opportunities to work with new hams and people that were learning the ropes and how to become better operators. And some of our training programs involved contests, and I saw the results from that, and out of that grows this talk. So who is this presentation for? Now, first of all, it's not for contesters. I'm not trying to bring in contesters and try to make them into emergency communicators. Contesters are encouraged to join their public service group, and they get a lot out of it. They bring certain things to the table, but this presentation is for, particularly for leaders of emergency communication groups who are looking for more and interesting ways to train their operators, who are interested in doing something beyond the normal drills. And it's for new hams and hams that have been out there a while who are interested in improving their own operating skills. And so thus the title of the presentation is Contesting Being Radio Fitness Center. the purpose of the presentation is to explain how you can use contesting as a training and operator exercise program within your emergency services and public service group. The idea is to get you thinking about how to use radio sport programs in general and the good things that they can bring to your operators. I'm not trying to convert you all to being contesters. I'm not trying to convert your team to becoming a contest multi-operator. I'm just trying to give you ideas about how to improve your training. Why is this topic useful? In my 20 plus years as an emergency communications operator, a leader of organizations, a participant in organizations, I've been called out, I've gone on innumerable drills, I've eaten innumerable Saturday morning breakfasts, and what I've noticed is that there is a real need to help operators that are new to the hobby or that don't get on a lot or that are very enthusiastic about helping their communities but are not real hardcore operators, trying to help them become more effective. We talk a lot about safe and legal and courteous, and what I found out, particularly for technicians, is what we really want is effective. And if you're effective, that becomes courteous. And if you're effective, you become much more of an asset to your team, and you feel better about yourself, and you get more out of the hobby. So this is a topic that I think is recognizable by almost all public service and emergency communication teams. So I want you to think about how to make use of competitive environments in your own circumstances, whatever those may be. There's no one-size-fits-all. I can't give you an A, B, C, D checkoff list to do. You'll have to take a look around, look at your circumstances, look at the resources that are available to you, and look at the needs of your team and yourself, and decide what you'd like to do. So when I walk into the fitness center, which is not nearly as frequently as I should, there's about a zillion different machines. So I can't possibly use them all, so I've got to decide on what I'm trying to get out of my time in the fitness center and then come up with a program based on those needs. And that's what I want you to think about. So when you walk away from this presentation, I'm hoping that you'll say, you know, some things I agreed with, some things I didn't agree with, but you know, this particular idea about, say, an FM simplex contest, I thought I heard about one of those in this area. Maybe we should try that. Or, gee, our state QSO party's coming up, and I wonder if we could activate our EOC. Or could I bring our comm trailer out to a hilltop and we do a VHF contest in September? There's lots of ideas. Just get to thinking. There's lots of contests out there. There's one for every purpose, and there's something going on every weekend. So that's basically the idea of the talk. So let's start. Why would you do contests anyway? You ask contesters and they'll tell you it's a lot of fun and they enjoy the competition, but not everybody is a contester or really wants to get into contesting. It's like not everybody wants to play football, not everybody wants to play any kind of any sport that you want to identify, but everybody kind of realizes that exercise is good for you, and that's why we work out. You can do the same thing with radio sport as you can with physical sport for physical activities. So exercise is good for you. It builds up your skills. It helps you take care of yourself in many different ways. And so contests can be used in that way for your club and your public service team. We can think back to the days when contests were started. The first international contest was held in 1928, I think. It was called the International Relay Contest, and the idea was to encourage American and North American hams to contact DX stations in order to exercise their station capabilities. And then in 1930, Field Day got started. Maybe that was a little later. I think sweepstakes was in 1930 and Field Day was in a few years later. But sweepstakes was originally created for practicing traffic handling, and that's why the exchange is so long. It mirrors a radiogram form, and so the idea was all these traffic handlers were out there. The league wanted a contest that would give them some high-intensity practice and help them develop their traffic handling skills. And later, Field Day came along as a way to drag the equipment out there in the field and use it under emergency communications conditions. So the contest, even though we know Field Day is not really a contest and the clubs treat it like that, they were originally created for practicing your operating and station development. So the net idea to take away from that, the fundamental, is that contest and contesting increase your radio know-how. They expose you to different environments. They ask you to do different things that may take you out of your comfort zone. They encourage you to push the envelope. They encourage you to optimize your station, and they put your operating techniques under a microscope. So you can get better. You will definitely feel the difference after you've done some contest activity. They're also fun. And one of the things about emergency communications and public service is that it's hard to keep people active year after year after year if all you're doing is the same thing every week or every month, whatever. The idea is you have to give it some variety or people will just drift away. And I'm sure we've all experienced turnover where a person comes in and they're very enthusiastic and they show up at everything for a year, maybe two, and then suddenly they start missing a meeting, they miss a drill, and before you know it, they're gone. Perhaps they kind of got bored. If you don't have a good disaster, maybe they don't feel like their services are needed. So you need something that's fun, it's exciting, it gives them some feeling of success and reward. So this encourages activity, it gets them to participate, and it's interesting. You don't have to do it every week. You can do it as much or as little as you want. So basically, contests are a form of radio exercise. They build your skills, they build your know-how, and they're something fun and unusual. Okay, so now you got a skilled operator, they're an effective operator. And you know as well as I do, all you team leaders out there, that an emergency is not the time to be learning basic operating skills. There's nothing more frustrating than being in a call out or being in a demonstration and relying on an operator to be able to perform a function and have them fumble around on the air or trying to get the equipment working, or they've forgotten their training or whatever. The emergency is not the time. You need to be ready when the emergency happens. So the idea is that there are many common elements between public service type operating and contest operating. You need to be clear in your speech. You need to be able to copy. You need to be able to operate your equipment. You need to be able to maintain your equipment. There's going to be challenges on the air. So all of these things you need to get good at responding to challenges and overcoming them. So contesting, like exercise, it improves your effectiveness, and it really stresses the operator and it stresses the station. Any contesting operator will tell you that they know every time if they record their operation, they listen to that and they go, oh my God, I was so awful. How did I not hear that guy? Why did I miss that call sign? There's room for all of us to grow. And a station, if you operate it for any length of time, chances are you'll find something that needs to be improved. Either your radio's at the wrong height and you get that radio tuning elbow where you can't stand to put your elbow on anything hard for like 2 days, or maybe the headphones hurt after a while, or having the microphone right in your face is not working. There's always something to improve. If you're more effective, you're going to be ready when you need it. You're not going to have to think about stuff. You're not going to have to root around and try to find all the pieces. You're going to be ready to go. So the idea is by going out and competing in some way, the operators in the station will be more prepared. Challenges. There's always challenges. When you go out, I've been assigned to do portable stations. I've been assigned to do mobile stations. I've been assigned to do EOCs. I've worked in trailers. All these different things in tents. There's always different challenges. Sometimes it's as simple as a hand microphone that doesn't quite work, or you missing a cable, or maybe somebody left the transceiver in a configuration that you're not familiar with. You've got to practice overcoming these challenges. Challenges happen all the time in contesting. The operating, the propagation, the equipment, all these different things will challenge you and challenge the operators. So it's just good practice to get used to fixing this stuff and learning how to operate. And as you all know, all you leaders out there, if you've got a skilled operator, they're much more robust, they're much more reliable, and you'll have more confidence in their ability when you give them an assignment. So contesting pushes the good arrow in the right direction. I've got to stress here, if I've got contesters out there, contesting does not replace procedural and organizational training. And we got a couple of comments that are very, very true, that sometimes you get people that show up and they think they know everything, and just because they're good at something else, they think they can just drop right into emergency communications or public service, and they're the pro from Dover, and they're going to come and show you how to do it. And it's very disruptive. It causes hard feelings. It breaks down cooperation. It's a bad thing. If you're a contester, you need to know the procedures and the organization of the group that you're trying to work with. You have to participate. It's not enough to just know that you can operate a radio and then show up and say, well, I'll just figure it out. We also all have on our teams members that don't show up for the drills and don't show up for the training and don't really pay a lot of attention to the documentation and the test, and they think they'll just figure it out when they show up. Somehow, miraculously, they're not going to practice their instrument, but they're going to show up on Saturday night and play with the orchestra and just be fine. It doesn't work that way. So when my conversations with contesters say, look, you've got to participate. You've got to know the procedures. You've got to know the organization. You've got to know the jargon. You've got to know the people. So it's not enough to just have a big station and be a good operator. It helps, but it's not enough. Okay, so let's talk about basic radio fitness. Now, what I consider fitness comes in several different groups. For starting, the biggest challenge to new and beginning operators is speaking, sending, and logging. I've talked to many, many different groups. I've trained lots of CERT people. I've trained lots of hams. And the first time they start talking over the radio, they really don't get it that the other person cannot see them. And all that the communication that they're going to accomplish comes through a speaker about this big. That's it. You can't see hand signals. You can't see facial expressions. None of that. It all comes over the speaker. And so they have to learn to speak and talk and listen so that it all comes through the little speaker as clearly as possible. It's the same thing with sending, whether you're talking about digital or CW. You have to learn how to send clearly. You have to send at a rate the other person can copy. And when you're logging information, you have to be accurate. So these fundamental skills of speaking and sending and logging are really stressed in contesting because they're going to check your log and they're going to check your exchange. And if you don't get it right, you're going to lose the contact. And that's an important part of the competitive environment. And it's not an accusation that you're cheating. It's just a recognition that you made a mistake. It's like jumping off sides in football. It's not an attempt to cheat. It's just that you made a mistake. And so there's a penalty associated with it. And minimum, you have to turn the ball over, you have to back up 5 yards, or you go sit back down in the dugout, whatever. So basic radio fitness is this generation of information from a human being trying to get it to another human being through a tiny little radio microphone and some headphones and the wires and all this kind of stuff. And all the nasty things that the radio communication channel can do to that information, you've got to learn to overcome it. Okay, so let's move up a level from the basic speaking, sending, and logging. You got to copy the information. It's not enough to just hear it. You have to understand what the other person is saying. If they're sending phonetics, you have to think about those as letters. You don't have time when you're in a contest or really an emergency communication system to sit there and think, oh, let's see, Papa, well, that'll be P, or Alpha, is that A? You've got to build up this skill where it comes in your ear and turns into meaning right away. And by sheer repetition and practice that you get in a contest, your copying will improve. Another thing is tuning. I wrote the article about SSB for QST last year after watching a bunch of new hams to HF trying to tune in sideband signals. And those of us that have been around for a while have almost always completely forgotten how difficult that was at first. And they go real slow and they're not real sure what they're hearing, and then they overshoot, and then they come back, and then they finally get about right, and it takes them a long time. Well, that's just part of being a new ham and figuring this stuff out. And if you're their mentor or your Elmer, then that's when you lean in and help them and show them how to use the knob. Well, in a contest situation where you're trying to make a lot of contacts in a hurry and you're doing what the contesters call search and pounce, tuning that knob is important. And after a few hours of this, you're a lot better. You've figured out that, gee, one revolution of that knob is just about the distance on the dial from one signal to another. So after I work somebody, I'll just turn that knob once, and then somebody else is right there, and I can tune them right in. And they develop this ear for the signals. That's real important. That'll save lots and lots and lots of time. Another thing is when you are tuned properly, the person on the other end hears your voice at a natural pitch. That's also important to copying and tuning. We've all listened to somebody and they're very hard to copy. So let's get on frequency. Let's zero beat, as they used to say. And copying and tuning are an important thing that you learn for radio fitness. And this other word about recognizing. When you're sitting there listening, maybe you're listening to an FM simplex channel, you start to recognize when there's a signal there. Or you recognizing, is that a signal on my channel, or is that some slop over from another channel? Or maybe I'm down on HF trying to run the 75-meter net. Is that person above me or below me? Which way do I turn the knob? What are they doing? Are they calling CQ contest? A contester can recognize whether it's low or high or whatever. You hear that rhythm and you recognize it. Same thing with any other kind of operating. If you do it frequently enough, you learn to recognize stuff even if it's not perfect copy. And that helps you get to perfect copy very quickly. Let's move up another level here. Aiming, choosing, and timing. Aiming is basically, I'm talking about antennas. You need to be able to use a rotator control box without thinking about it. You just need to be able to reach over there, push the brake, start the thing going one way or the other. Every once in a while you kind of look at it and then, okay, it's there. As opposed to, let's see, brake. Okay, brake, and then I'm going to go this way or that way. Now that's part of being new to it, and that's natural. That's where we all started. The idea is to learn how to do that quickly and effectively. Keep coming back to this effective thing. What about choosing? Which caller are you going to come back to? Which channel do you think will be the effective channel? Which band should I be on right now? Contesting is all about making choices. Nobody gets it all right. There's this sort of a myth that the big guys, they just pick a frequency and then they just call CQ and everything comes to them, and that's all they have to do. They just have to sit there because they have such a big signal. Well, they call CQ a lot. They do have a big signal, but you don't win. You don't even place in the top 10 unless you know when to choose bands, when to tune around, when to look for those multipliers, all these different choices. So contesting is an interesting game because it has a lot of different choices, but not so many that you can't devise a strategy for it. So if the game is too hard, if it has too many choices and you can't pick up any strategy, then it's sort of a random exercise, and that's not fun. Or if the game's too simple, where a simple strategy always guarantees a win, that's not fun either. Contesting is a hard game, but it's not an impossible game. So it makes you choose and makes you think about your choices. And as you think and you choose and you evaluate and you decide whether that was a success or not, that built up your radio know-how. Timing. How many people have gone out to field day and here's a new operator to HF. They're enthusiastic, but their timing just isn't there. They're used to repeater contact, or they're used to just a casual contact with friends on the band, and they don't quite get it that they've got to jump right in there, send a call once clearly, and then back off. And so they just don't have their timing down. Well, after a little while in a contest, you get your timing down. It happens pretty quickly, especially with a mentor right there saying, now, now, now. And pretty soon you get it. And pretty soon they're doing it all by themselves. They don't need you pushing their push-to-talk button or anything. Timing is important. It's important in checking into a net. How many of us are sat there and listen to a net go on and on and on through the roll call because people won't call. They just won't call. If you get them used to a more aggressive style of interaction, your net control will be able to check in a whole lot more people a whole lot quicker, and they'll get the calls right, and you'll be on to your business without sitting there waiting. Aiming, choosing, timing, they're all about choices. Building, installing, and repairing. Well, if you get into competitive radio, you'll find that you're doing a lot of building, installing, and repairing. You build cables, you fix microphones, you fix little connectors, you find every loose thing in your station. Building, installing, repairing is a very important part of basic radio fitness. I've been lobbying for years for the ARRL groups to develop a position called the fixer, and it's the person who has the toolbox and knows how to fix everything from broken antennas to busted cables, and that person keeps everybody on the air. Contesting will stress those skills. Another thing is filtering, selecting, and controlling. Filtering is very important. In our casual net check-ins, our Saturday morning roll call nets, our drills, they're done kind of slowly. There's not a lot of interference. And so it's a very kind of casual interaction, unless it's an exercise that actually stresses them, which is a great thing. Contesting will definitely show you how to use your filters in the radio, and it'll also show you how to use your filters up here. I know top contesters who, you might not ever believe it, but don't even have a CW filter in the radio. They use a phone with filter, 2.8 kilohertz, even with all those signals coming in, and they use their brains, their ears, to select one of those signals. They're just that good. They practiced at it. There's filtering between your ears, there's filtering in your radio. Your radios have all these cool knobs, passband tuning, notch filtering, passband shift back and forth, RIT and XIT, all these different things. You need to learn how to use those things, because if you're on HF and it's noisy, there's interference from another net, maybe the band is going long and you're trying to get a message through, you need to be able to filter, use all of the different knobs on the radio. Contesting is a great way to find out how to do that. Under adverse conditions, selecting which antenna do you use, which radio do you use, which channel do you use. So contesting helps you make those selections. And it's the same thing with controlling. I'm going to control my rotator control box. I'm going to control my antennas. I'm going to control a switch, whatever. You just learn how to do all this stuff because it affects your competitive ability to succeed. And so there's a very tight loop there between making a choice and finding out the effects. I have this slide that's not on this particular routine here, but it shows the four-part cycle of life. Observe, judge, act, repent. And so the contesting really tightens that right up. Observe, judge, act, repent. That's how we learn. It's like they say, I know we learn from experience, but why does it always have to be mine? Another thing is stamina. You'll hear contesters talk about butt in the chair. Many a contest has been lost because a top operator took their butt out of the chair and went off to do something else. And the guy that kept his butt in the chair, like the rabbit in the hare, won the contest. Stamina is important. When you get a call out, when you're in the field, when you're doing something important, you need to have operators that you know can take the position for hour after hour after hour. You may not have very many people. For example, K7NHB, he was a 17-year-old kid in Montana on Good Friday in 1964, and he was going to get on, work a little CW check-in to the transcontinental net in the morning, that Sunday morning, and he heard these weak signals come through, and it turned out they were from Alaska, and that was the very first communication out of Anchorage and Alaska that came through on CW to Al. Here he is, 17-year-old kid, and because he was a skilled operator and he'd done a lot of traffic handling and he'd done a lot of contests, he sat there for 72 hours. He was basically the only link that the Alaskans had down into the national traffic system. And he got various medals and awards and honors, but basically he was able to put his butt in the chair and stay there. Now, of course, your operators aren't going to be there for 72 hours. But I pulled a few 12-hour shifts, and I know a lot of the team leaders out there have too. And basically with a break for a bathroom or something like that, you have to be able to keep your butt in the chair. Contesting is a lot of fun, and if it's fun, if it's exciting, you can stay with it. And so the hours fly by, and it trains the operators to pace themselves, to have the stamina, and to get used to the idea of putting headphones on, listening to this noise, and all these other things, handling people, checking in and out, all this kind of stuff. Stamina, stamina, stamina. That's also very important. Mike, do we have any questions out there? I've been doing all the talking. I don't hear anything from Mike, so we must be good.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute my line.
There you go. Do we have any questions?
Okay, yeah, we do, and we've got a good one, and then I've got just a couple of thoughts I want to throw in and get your comments on. We had somebody bring up how a new ham can participate in a contest when a lot of contests are dominated by the big superstations, high power, and so on. Are there contests that are either band specific or for 100 watts or less? I know NAQP is one of those. Any others? And also, if you don't have a superstation, and I know that's been the case for me pretty much my entire ham career is 100 watts in a wire. What's your advice for how to get the most out of a contest if your station isn't quite a K3LR level?
Okay, well, I'm actually going to talk about that later. So can we defer that?
Sure, sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's a perfectly good question, and the answer is not to, just spend $1 million and get a big station. We'll cover that in a little bit. What else you got?
That is actually the only question, and I just want to comment on a couple things that you said. Just you mentioned the score and getting your score judged, and if you make a mistake, corrected. And I know there, and I saw this myself with an ARRL's team that did a contest, always make sure you submit your score after the contest, because that's how you end up getting that uh, for all intents and purposes, a grade for your effort. And I would suggest not only submitting it to the contest sponsor, but also 3830 as well. I've been submitting mine there for several years now. It's nice because you can go back and you can look at how you did year after year all on one screen, and you can really get a lot of information on your previous results. And I will throw this out there, and I know you're going to deal with this later, but just a quick anecdote of what you can do with 100 watts in a wire. The recent 13 Colony special event station that was on a couple weeks ago, I was one of the operators for K2D here in Connecticut. I operated from my home station, which is 100 watts in an 80-meter loop out in the backyard. And even with a modest setup like that, like I said, no power and a wire antenna, it was still possible to put over 1,100 Qs in the log over the course of the special event. So it can be done. It's not always easy, but it can be done. So hang on, Ward. I think we got one question that just came in.
Okay, you look at that question. I want to comment on something you said. Mike mentioned 3830. There's a website called 3830scores, SCORES.com, 3830scores.com. It's run by Bruce Horn, W7BNM, and after the contest, people get on and basically they just report their scores, how many QSOs they made on each band, what category they were participating in, and some soapbox comments down at the bottom. And then this gets distributed all over the place. He calculates who's in first, he keeps the top 10, he keeps the ranking, all this kind of stuff. It's easy to forget that you even operated in the contest months later when the results come out. It's a great little way to share your success stories, and it's highly recommended. Mike, go ahead.
Sure. We have two questions, and I think one you might hit later, I'm not sure, but just here they are. For a new operator that's learning CW, their speed isn't exactly lightning fast just yet.
Right.
What's the best way for them to get in the log for a station that is sending at 30 plus words per minute?
Okay. I'd send a radiation missile at them and knock them down. That's it.
That works for me.
Yeah, it works for me. I tell you, well, okay, I'll talk about that now. So you're trying, and this is really true for phone or CW. Basically, you're not real sure of your technique. These guys are going like that, and what do I do? What do I do? Okay, so first of all, most contests, the exchange is very similar from one contact to the next. So sit there and listen and make sure you understand what their information is. Get their call right, get their exchange right. Okay, and then just sit there without transmitting, play along a little bit. So guys in phone sweepstakes, it's going CQ phone sweepstakes, CQ sweeps, CQ sweeps, and then people are calling and he'll go N0AX, K3LR, 512, Alpha, K3LR, whatever it is, 72, Western Pennsylvania, boom, like that. And you play along with the person that calls back. Just repeat your information at the same time that the other person who's in the contest is giving theirs. And so you get up to speed. Just keep practicing. It's important to breathe, by the way, before you give your stuff. Breathe in, give your stuff all in one statement, and then breathe out. And it makes it so much easier. So just play along or send along or whatever with the other guy until you kind of come up to speed. If you're sending CW and it's too fast, just send QRS. And a lot of the times, unless the guy's got a real big pileup going on, if he doesn't have a lot of callers, he or she will slow down for you. They've all been there. Basically, QRS. Don't send your call sign or anything else, just QRS. And if they hear that and they don't have other callers, they'll slow down. Sometimes they won't slow down enough, but they'll slow down. Okay, and then you've already copied their information in your head, even if they're changing numbers from contact to contact. You should now know what your contact number would be. And so you go, okay, I've got this all written down. I'm number 701. Okay, have it ready to go. Write it down in front of yourself so you don't get flustered, and then you just send it all out once, one time, one string. They'll hear you. If they need a fill on something, if they need a repeat, they'll ask. But basically just get used to the contest rhythm by playing along with a few contacts, and you'll find that you're a lot less nervous and a lot less flustered when you finally do jump in. Mike, do you think that answered the question?
Yeah, I would say so. And the only thing I would add to that is I use this myself. Actually, one little trick that I've used if somebody's going too fast, copy a few of the exchanges ahead of time. You know, especially if it's a serial number, and then you might have an idea as to what it is. You know, just kind of see where they're at in that. The other thing is practice CW before the contest. Don't wait. A program that I love to use just to keep my speed up is Morse Runner, and there's several others that will help you, and especially a few days ahead of the contest. Just kind of put it into a contest mode and kind of get the feel for it. There was a question about and this may be, I don't know if we're looking for tips that Aries guys can take from contesters on diet strategies. And
diet, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about that later, so let's talk about that now. We just talked about stamina, and you can't keep your butt in the chair if you drank a gallon of water, okay? You have to limit your water intake. It's important to not eat real heavy foods. I just have a bowl of trail mix and some vegetables and that sort of stuff. The nice thing about CW contest is you can eat while you're doing them. It's a lot harder with phone, and you have to kind of be able to, you know, pop M&Ms in your mouth and that sort of thing. Just nibble during the contest. Don't worry. If you're going to take a big dinner, then just stop, go eat, and then come back. Don't drink a lot of water if you are expecting to stay in the chair for a long period of time. And speaking of chairs, one of the things that I talk about, even to experienced contesters, is have a comfy chair. It's not supposed to be a recliner, but on the other hand, don't use a hard chair that's going to make your butt hurt. You can have thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear, but if you've got a $5 garage sale chair with the cushion that's torn and the seat's all wobbly and it doesn't support your back, you'll be out of there in an hour. So if you've got to spend some money on your station, make sure you have a good chair. Diet is important. Get some sleep before the contest. If you're really going to do it, get some sleep. Catch up on sleep through the week. I'm not expecting people in this audience to suddenly want to go out and do a 48-hour contest. But on the other hand, if you want to do 12 hours on Saturday for the NAQP, you need to not have to take a nap in the middle of it. So catch up on your sleep, and then just nibble. High energy, small snacks that all your blood to run to your stomach and knock you out. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, thank you, Ward. And I will share one bit of advice in a phone contest. Pretzels are not a great snack. Also, we were sent a little reminder going back to that submitting scores is also the value of the log check report.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that.
Okay. Then we're caught up on questions and comments, so Ward, go ahead and take it away for the second half.
Okay, caveats. Caveats about contests. I think it's important to be realistic. I would be remiss if I said, oh, get your team out there and go for a win in sweepstakes multi-op. It ain't going to happen. You just need to have a calibrated approach to this, and you have to have reasonable expectations. If you have reasonable expectations, people will be feel that they're successful and they'll be interested in coming back. If the goals are too high or too low, they won't feel like they got anything out of it. It'll take a few efforts before you really have a feel for what your teams and your stations can do. Make them aware ahead of time that procedures and practices are very different. and contest versus casual operating versus net operating. There are three different kinds of operating. If you're used to a slow and deliberate kind of a net roundtable kind of operating, and you go jumping into sweepstakes without any kind of prep, you're going to be blown away. It's not the same kind of operating. It's the difference between having a casual game of catch in the backyard and going and playing football with the team on the weekends. They're just completely different. You have to let everybody know that optimized procedures for contests and optimized practices for contests are entirely different than nets. They're not really compatible. But you're not really trying to make a net a contest. You're not trying to make a contest a net. What you're trying to do is work on your radio know-how. Keep that in mind. The pace is a lot faster. And Mike brought that up. What do you do if you're not real fast, if you're not up to speed? Well, you can get confused, and it's easy to get confused. What you do is you move to the part of the band in the contest where things are slower. Typically, that's higher up in the band, and where the stations tend to spread out, and the slower stations are up there. You can find them. It's a lot slower. It's more casual. The stations are not so close together. There's less interference. Take your time. I'll say it's not a race. It's not a race for a beginner. It may be a race for the top guys, but you take your time. Don't operate any faster than you're comfortable with. By the end of the contest or by the end of your operating period, you'll find that you're comfortable at a much higher speed of making contacts than you were before. It doesn't take very long. It just takes a few contacts, and people start getting the hang of it. They get their timing right. They get their ears sort of tuned into what's going on, and you'll get a lot better. Always remember that the beginning operators need coaching. And that doesn't necessarily mean a new ham who just got their license per se. It can be a ham who's not familiar with contesting, and they're just not used to the pace. They're not used to that early burly, whatever. Don't throw them in there on their own. Just throw them to the sharks and say, here you go. You've got to coach them for a while. Pair them up with an experienced operator and give them that personal attention, non-judgmental attention. Get a headphone splitter so that everybody can hear, and maybe even you log, they just operate. Make it easy for them to have some successes, and pretty soon you'll see them start to come up to speed. The classic field day trick, and I think a lot of us old guys started out this way, is you get involved with a club and you help them put up all the antennas and stuff, and somebody says, okay, I want you to log for Bud. He's on 80 meters, go over there. And so you go into the tent and you're trying to keep up with Bud, and you're logging away and all this stuff, and after an hour or two, Bud kind of goes, well, I need to hit the head here, you take it. And all of a sudden, you're in charge. And then Bud never comes back. And that's how it works. And you wind up, after a while, you sweat like a pig, you're hopelessly confused, but after a half an hour or so, you're a seasoned pro. You're making contacts, you're going. So beginning operators need coaching before you launch them. Make sure that you help them through that initial what period. It's also important to select contests that are appropriate to the operator's skill level and the interest, and that's what Mike was talking about earlier, and we had a question about that. How do you choose these contests? Choose the little ones. If you look at the results and there are 10,000 logs in this contest, that's a big one. That may not be appropriate for your first contact. But if you look at your state QSO party and maybe there's 50 logs or 100 entries or something like that, that is where you start. Take it easy. Maybe ask one of the local contesters, hey, our ARRL team is interested in doing a contest. Are there any like medium-sized or small contests coming up that we could do? They'll be glad to help you out with that. Take it easy. Use your first contest as just demonstrations, really. Have somebody that kind of knows how to contest come in, show you the ropes, let everybody take a turn one at a time, and so you kind of do spring training, and then, and only then, do you start actually entering the contest. Success will come gradually if you start slow, you have reasonable expectations, and you kind of work your way up. Let's talk about that small station for a minute. 100 watts in a wire. That's actually 90% of contest logs are 100 watts in a wire stations. They're not all big stations. Certainly the big stations are the ones that you hear. K3LR, you know, biggest station on the planet. It's enormous. Sure, you're going to hear Tim's station every time you turn on the band. But for every K3LR, there are 50 or 100 stations that are just tuning around looking for somebody to call. That's you, okay? You're tuning around looking for somebody to call. Contests depend on your participation. The casual people, the ones that may not call CQ except maybe 2 or 3 times in the contest, they're just tuning around, working the stations that come in clearly, that's easy to copy, and they think we'll hear their signal. Okay, that's all you need to do for starters. Just tune around, work these guys, and then after you get the hang of it, been up and down the band a couple of times, and you know, you're hearing the same guys all the time. Well, you're tuning around, you tune, and there's kind of a hole there. There's nobody calling CQ. You go, is the frequency in use? You wait for a minute. It's frequency in use. Nobody's there. Call CQ. You can do it. All you got to do is call CQ. Just remember how you heard Tim call CQ? CQ contest, K3LR, K3 Lima radio, CQ contest. That's it. Just don't use K3LR. And somebody will hear you. And maybe somebody just like you, tuning around with 100 watts in a wire, will call you. And you get their information, and you log them, and they tune away, and you call CQ again, and by gosh, you got a CQ run frequency. It'll last for a while, and then maybe the interference will kind of crowd you out. Then just go back to tuning, okay? Nobody owns a frequency, and nobody should think that they're going to have one for the whole frequency, for the whole contest. Just enjoy it and tune on. There was another thought that went through my head about the 100 watts in the wire station. And doggone it, I'm 60 years old and I forgot already. Anyway, success will come slowly to you. Just start slow and work your way up. It's not that big a deal. But choose your contest, choose the little ones, and jump into those. Okay, make contests work for you. Okay, what are you trying to accomplish here? If you're a team leader or you're an experienced MCOM person and you're trying to sell this idea of contesting, what difference do you want to make in your team? It's nice that everybody has has their radio know-how improved and stuff. What difference will it make for you? I just thought of that note, so hang on, I'm going to write that down here. Okay. Well, let's talk about minimizing extraneous chatter. We've all suffered through nets where a person checks in and it takes them 10 minutes to say 30 seconds worth of information because of all this other stuff. And the net control wants to greet everybody by name. A person has to say their call sign twice and their name and a whole bunch of other stuff, and it drags the net down. This is a real problem when the chips are down. It's like I tell people on the local Skywarn net, it's like imagine the tornado is on its way from Joplin, Missouri to St. Charles. You don't want to be greeting everybody by name. Okay, we want to get them into the net, we want to get them out of the net. All right, so minimize extraneous chatter. That's a good thing to practice in the contest, okay? I listen to Field Day all the time. The one thing that drives me crazy is everybody has to say, please copy. Why? What else is the person on the other end going to do? Oh, I didn't realize I was supposed to copy you. Okay, or I say, okay, I want you to sit down there at the radio, but first I want you to say, please copy 200 times. Why? Well, you're going to say it 200 times if you make 200 contacts, so why not we just get that out of the way now? Okay, no. Okay, so you got to stop with the extra stuff. Okay, you're thinking, I'm training for an emergency situation, disaster relief, every word counts, my battery is running down, I got to be good at just saying what I need to say and getting it over with. Okay, so contests are good training to minimize extraneous chatter. Speaking clearly and training the ear. I talk to people all the time and they either go real fast and mumble, or the reverse kind of, or they don't talk into the microphone and whatever. Okay, you've got to learn that you have to put the microphone in front of your mouth and you have to speak clearly, and then you have to learn how to listen. Fewer repeats means faster messaging. This is what Riley Hollingsworth was talking about in his FCC forum in 2007 when he said, net guys, I know it drives you crazy, but I want you to listen to the contesters. They pass traffic very, very rapidly. They're very good at it because their score depends on it. Learn how to do that. Speak clearly. Learn how to listen to what the other person says so that you get fewer repeats and more accurate copy is the next topic. You've got to be accurate. When somebody's giving you a list of names or locations or supplies or license plates or runner numbers or boat IDs or whatever, you just really don't get the option of making a mistake. It makes a big deal. We used to have this exercise on Vashon Island. It was a round-robin exercise, and I would send one message. It's sort of like the old game of post office. And I would give the message to a person who had a handheld or one of those little FRS things, and I'd say, okay, I want you to send this message to this other person on channel A. Okay, they would do that. And the person on channel A would then use channel B to transfer the message to a third person, and then they would use channel C, and then they would use channel D, and then we compare the two messages that would come back in. And they were never exactly the same. This is training. For example, one time the ferry dock at the south end of the island turned from working to not working by the time it got around ABCD. That's a problem. Okay, so we've got to work on accurate copy and logging. And that's where the LCR comes in. And that was my note that I wrote down. But LCR is a log checking report, and this is why it's important to send in your log, even if you only make a half dozen contacts. Send it in. The person who's doing the log checking will throw it into their software. The software will compare the different contacts, and you will get a complete report back on every mistake that you made. And that can be painful, especially when you're just starting. But you go, I lost this contact because this guy, I thought his name was Fred, and it's really Jed. I miscopied, so I lose this contact. Or his check in sweepstakes, I copied 61, but it was really 71. So you start to get an idea of where you're weak and where you're strong. Another part of the LCR, the log checking report, is that you find out what other people make mistakes on copying you. Maybe you're not saying your name clearly. Maybe you're not saying your state abbreviation properly. Maybe you're using a wrong phonetic, whatever. Work on accurate copy and logging. And another thing is that you can learn how to do both at once. The idea is you sit there with your hands on the keyboard and it goes in your ears and out your fingers with as little brain processing power as possible. And that's simply a matter of repetition. And the less you think about it, the more accurate it becomes. Strange but true. And you also want to practice teamwork within and between stations on your team. Say you've got a lot of operators. Well, make two teams out of them. Let them compete. Let the teams work, maybe then cross them over and mix up the operators and that sort of stuff. Practice the teamwork of building and operating and competing and training together. It really builds the team. It's a lot of fun. We used to do this thing where we break up the groups, some experienced guys and some inexperienced guys, and some experienced gals and some inexperienced gals. We put them on different stations and we let them work the same contest for 6 hours, and then we'd compare notes. And it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of trash talk, and then we'd go off and have pizza and a little woofing contest and all that kind of stuff. This idea of a little soft competition, we're not talking about tackle football here. We're just talking about having a little fun and mixing it up. It's a great way to build teamwork, and you don't have to walk over hot coals in bare feet. Okay, it gives your station workout. This is great. This is especially good for EOCs. This is especially good for comm trailers, where I think the expression "rode hard and put away wet" comes to mind here. You take your comm station out, it's all nice, everything's labeled, everything's in the right drawers, it's all just perfect, and you drag it out for the weekend exercise, and everybody goes through it, and you bring it back in, and it looks like somebody just took a big egg beater in there and made a huge mess. Okay, give your station that workout. Can you find everything? When you do find everything, does it actually work? I don't know. You find out that hand mic with the flaky push-to-talk switch, well, now it's worse than flaky. It doesn't work at all. Okay, or the headphones that got dragged off and dropped on the floor about 800 times on field day because they hooked around the rolling chairs. Okay, they don't work anymore either on one side. Maybe you got a loose cable. The antenna's sort of shaky in the SWR, goes up and down. This is how you find this stuff out. It's not, and you don't want to find it out when you get called out. You want to find it out at a time when you can respond to it, when you can fix it, when the stakes are not very high. Contests are great for that. Take a mobile on a shakedown cruise. I've got a mobile station in my car. There's always something to fix or tighten or loosen, whatever. The control cable gets pinched in the back door. The ground lead that goes from the radio to the frame is a little bit loose or came off because somebody stuck their foot under the seat, whatever. Get your mobiles out there in a shakedown cruise. Put some stress on your operators and your stations so you find out where the weak spots are. Then learn how all those controls operate. We talked about that before. You paid for them. Why not figure out how to use them? Hey, guess what? RF gain. You can turn it down. How about that? It's not welded all the way on. If you turn RF gain down, you would be amazed at how quiet 75 meters becomes. It's great. What about the attenuator? What about this shift thing? What about automatic notch? What about RIT and XIT and all this kind of stuff? What about programming in some memories? One of the great fun things to do in a contest, if you're tuning, searching and pouncing, well, you can go from pile-up to pile-up, and you sit there until you work the person, then you turn to the next station and you work them, and then you turn to the next station and work them. Okay, well, after a while, you're thinking, why am I sitting in these one little pile-ups for so long? Well, how about if you use the VFOA, VFOB button? Program one pile-up in the VFOA, one pile-up in the VFOB, and you just switch back and forth until you can basically be in two pile-ups at once if you want. It's a lot of fun. Your radio has amazing capabilities, and we only use a very small fraction of them typically. Learn how the memories work. Learn how the stacking registers work, all this kind of stuff. They can really save your bacon if you're trying to work 3 or 4 different nets at the same time, and you need to save those frequencies and jump around. Okay, practice changing frequency and mode. This is something that really clobbers our local team from time to time, is we'll have our nets and somebody will say, we're not meeting on the repeater tonight. We're all going to go over to 147 dot something something something. And everybody goes, what? Because they have to change everything. Okay, well, they got to get out their little book and they got to change everything. Change it a lot. Ham radio is flexible. Use that flexibility. Know how to do it. If you're on upper sideband on 20 meters and things aren't working very well, change to CW. Why not? You need to know how to do this. You need to know everybody, okay, let's check in on USB, then let's all change to CW. Then, hey, let's all change to PSK 31. Oh, how about that? You can be in 3 contests at once, as a matter of fact. It doesn't mean you just only have to work one. You can have a lot of fun with this. Change things up, make challenges, encourage your team to work through them, and try different configurations of the equipment and antennas. What happens if one of the antennas falls down? What are you going to do then? Try scrambling things up. So give the station a workout. Contests are real good for that. Sometimes they give you a workout, but otherwise give your station a workout. Here's an example of an EOC activation, and I got this from Angel Santana, Whiskey Papa 3 Golf Whiskey down in Puerto Rico. As of 2008, we have been celebrating World Amateur Radio Day every April 18th. And a couple years ago, my friend Edgar Garcia knows the EMA director from the city of Catania, and we approached him to operate the event from inside the facilities. And then 2 months later, have field day to make our first Class F activation. Class F is the EOC station class. And he approved it, and they did the special ward event. I don't know, I never get to operate ward because I'm always gone that weekend, one of these years. This led to 2 consecutive field days, a balloon presentation, and even technician classes. It's a lot of fun. People come, you use the EOC, you demonstrate the EOC capabilities, and you find some weaknesses sometimes. It's very good practice, not only for the station and the operators, but for the whole team. And it also demonstrates to your host or your served agency that you're capable of doing stuff. And encourage them to come by. Say, it'll take us a couple hours to get rolling, and then why don't you guys come I'll come by about 6 o'clock tonight, and we'll see how things are going. And you show them all the different states that you've operated, maybe the different countries, all the different contacts. They'll be amazed. They have no idea. Okay, exercise your plan B. Okay, all you emergency communicators and public service people, you do have a plan B, right? Everybody needs to have a plan B. Maybe select a contest type to practice your plan B. What if your repeater's down? Okay, you can practice that plan B, which would be go to the simplex channel, operate in a simplex contest. Many regions around the area have these little FM simplex contests where people can drive around to different zip codes or grid squares or whatever. That's great practice for listening on simplex, learning how to open up the squelch and copy a weak signal. That's your plan B for a repeater type operation. What happens if your operators are not able to deal well with noise, QRN? Well, how about if you operate single band on 75 meters? That'll be great practice with noise, okay? What if your power's out? Hey, we're going to operate this contest using batteries, and we're going to run QRP, 5 watts or something. You'll really get some exercise. Damage assessment, that's a very common emergency function. Enter a VHF contest as a rover. Okay, what's a rover? A rover is a mobile station, okay? Get one of the all-mode rigs like a 706 or a 7000 or an 857 or something like that that operates on 6 meters and 2 meters, and have somebody run around with dipoles or a little loop or something like that and enter as a VHF rover. It's great fun. They'll find all the high spots. They'll make contacts they never knew they could, and it's great practice for driving around making damage assessment reports. What if your net frequency is busy? What if you had to move the net? I know, move the net? Oh no, we can't move the net. Well, you might have to. What if there are more than one net on your frequency? Somebody's going to have to move. You're both not going to shut down, okay? So what would happen if the whole thing had to move to a different frequency? How would you do that? Okay, in a contest, you practice. You say, okay, teams, I want you to all operate on 40 meters, okay? And I want you to practice moving up and down the band, finding different stations and making contact. And furthermore, I'd like you to contact each other. Okay, so you need to find yourself. Or we're all going to meet on 7187, 2230, lower sideband. Okay? Practice. Plan B, move. An operation with no plan B is just waiting to fail. So you need to have a plan B. Take advantage of ham radio's flexibility. Too many operations, too many personal operators, I've been guilty, just have this assumption that, well, we're just going to operate on this one frequency, and just because I show up there every day, that happens to be our frequency. And this was a big problem during the W1AW portable operations. It was discovered that zillions of groups had all laid claim to their little frequencies. Nobody owns a frequency. Be willing to move around, respond, react. What if there's a carrier on your net frequency? What if there's something else going on? You need to have a plan B. Ham radio is the only service with this big knob on the radio. But too often we act as if we've screwed that knob down to one frequency. Crystals and rock-bound stuff, that's out. We should all be able to tune around and do what we need to do. Okay, well, where do you find these contests? Oh, this is great. I'm going to do this. What do I do? Okay, I talked about local simplex contest. The local St. Louis Suburban Radio Club sponsored this thing called the zip code contest. You open your phone book. This may be the only time anybody ever opens a phone book anymore. And there's your zip codes. Oh, okay. So there are two classes. There's mobile and there's fixed. Okay. So the mobile people go out and they operate on the simplex channels and they drive to different zip codes, and everybody tries to work as many different zip codes as they can and as many different contacts as they can. So it's great fun. You learn where all the high spots are in your area. Everybody gets great practice at weak signal copy and opening up the squelch and listening to the noise and jumping around between channels. All these different things, all good radio know-how. There are also activity days, which you'll find out. You can go to the special events calendar on the ARRL website, and you'll find a special call sign or a special event operating somewhere in your area, or maybe not in your area. Maybe you're just going to get together and you're going to try to work the Calaveras County Jumping Frog Activity Day. I have a certificate from it. It's terrific. Go in. These are very small things. These are great ways to get started. The next most busy thing are your state and regional QSO parties. For example, the Missouri QSO party. You can get on. The exchange is your basically your county. That's all you really need to know. And so you can stay at home, you can operate from your EOC, and you can activate your county. Or you can be real popular and you can drive around to the rare counties. I've made a practice of Ellen and I drive around. We're going to try to activate every county in Missouri, all 139 of them, or however many there are. It's going to take us 4 or 5 years to make all those little passes, but we go places we would never go. We learn all about propagation in the hills, in the valleys, down by the rivers, all this kind of stuff. And typically, activity is not very intense. There are little pulses of it. Sometimes you'll get a little flurry of contacts, and then you have to call CQ for a while. That's a great practice training ground. By regional QSO parties, I'm talking about 7 district QSO parties, 7 QP. There's New England QSO party. The Dakota division used to have a QSO party, that kind of stuff, where multiple states or a whole region is involved. These are fun. There's a lot of low-key activity, and it's kind of an easy way to get going. Rookie Roundup, there's 3 Rookie Roundups per year. They're for specifically for people who have been licensed in the last 3 years. There's a phone contest in April. There's a RIDI contest in August that's coming up about 4 weeks from now, and there's a CW contest in December. These are great for your new operators. We have a team category. We have, if you're not a rookie, you can get in and participate that way. If you're part of a school club, check out the school club roundups. One's in October and one's in February, and it's all week. During the week after school, you can hear the school clubs go. And you don't have to be a school club. You can be a non-school club, and those are perfectly welcome. It's a great opportunity because there's a focus of activity. It's going to be new operators getting used to operating, and so there's not this pressure, oh my gosh, I got to work these guys that are going 800 miles an hour. Another, I don't have it on this list, but Mike mentioned it earlier, the North American QSO parties, 100 watts, name and state. Couldn't be easier. And you don't need to have a big station. These are North America only, so you're not trying to work DX, and you'd be amazed at what you can work with a low dipole in the backyard. And here's a tip. For sweepstakes in particular, the big domestic contest, a secret weapon is a low 80-meter dipole, something about 10 to 20 feet above the ground. It shoots all of your signal straight up. Remember that NVIS thing? Okay, NVIS, it's great. Get on 75 with low dipole and 100 watts. You will have an S9 signal for a 300-mile radius around your station. And unless you live in Wyoming, you're going to work a lot of people. If you live in Wyoming, a lot of people will be trying to work you. So it's an easy way to have a lot of fun. Then these OTA things. You're probably familiar with the National Parks on the Air program that's going on right now. Those are fun. Just say, hey guys, we're going to all activate the EOC, and we're going to see how many NPOTA stations we can work today. And typically there'll be 10 or 20. And maybe you start keeping a log of how many that you've operated, and maybe people get so excited about it that they decide to go for a simple award or certificate, and your team gets this feedback. This is so important. SOTA is Summits on the Air, and guys take their little QRP radios. Look on the cover of QST this month. Steve, WG0AT, and his pack goats go up to various mountaintops in Colorado and the Southwest and activate for an hour or two. It's a lot of fun. And if you live near saltwater, the IOTA Islands on the Air program is a lot of fun too. Just giving you ideas here. Field day. Everybody likes field day. I'm sure a lot of you participated in your club field day. You can do field days anytime. You can operate any contest in field day mode. So just use the field day fun to build that momentum and say, let's do that again. Everybody says, oh, that was so fun. When can we do that again? Unless you get blown away by a thunderstorm or whatever. And you say, well, the next field day is not until next June. And everybody goes, ah. But you say, oh, how about if we get on for the September VHF QSO party? We'll set up as a field day and we'll operate. Oh, yeah, that'll be fun. So there's lots of different things you can do. And we talked about VHF rover and mobile categories. Putting a bunch of radio stuff in a car and driving around all the high spots in your county or your region is huge fun. And it doesn't always have to be a mountaintop. A multi-story parking garage is a great place to drive up to the top floor with the mask down. Don't ask me how I know this. Okay, you drive up and you park up at the top and you put up your antennas, and hey, you got your own mountaintop. Google is your friend. Just come up contest calendar. You'll find Bruce Horn, WA7 B&M's very good online calendar. It has all the information you need. There's Contest Corral and QST that has links to all the websites. It's easy to find these contests. There's many contests every weekend. Some of them are very small and you never hear them, and some of them are huge. Opportunities are out there. Here's another example of a group, an MCOM group, that uses contests for training. The Bloomington, Minnesota Communications Group, it's a RACES group, WC0AAA. They take their comm van out. They took it out for the September VHF contest. They had a couple of mentors to supervise and guide the operation, and everybody else in the team that couldn't go with the van, they said, okay, we want you to get on separately. And we're going to start on 146.55 FM simplex, and they picked 3 30-minute focus times for activity. And so everybody didn't have to sit around all day listening to receiver hits. They had 3 30-minute periods when everybody was supposed to get on and activate. And let's see, it's getting kind of dark in here. There we go. Yeah, let's see if we can get some light on me. Okay, so I had 2 guides. they distributed by email, just a little 2-pager, how to do it. It's FM only. Here's a sample script. Here's how simplex operation works. Here's the general idea with VHF contesting and what people call weak signal operation. Okay, they found a local VHF club, probably the Minnesota Wireless Association. They said, hey, we're all going to get on. You'll be hearing us. We'll make some contacts. Listen for us. And they got a lot of their members on the air. Some went out with the van. Some operated from home. And they all got this great experience with simplex operation. They practiced their logging, and they got sort of an understanding of what they could do with their station. And they worked EN41, that's a grid square, around 430 kilometers away. And most people, just getting their start, and they have their handhelds and stuff, making a contact without a repeater that's 430 kilometers away, that's a big deal. So this is fun. This is something that they went, I had no idea. So January is the next big contest, or Winter Field Day. There's all sorts of things. So this group has already adopted contesting as training, and it's fun. It makes them curious. It gets them on the air. It gets them out of this rut. When you start, it's a groove, but boy, it turns into a rut real quick. And then we lose these new people. So let's give them something else to do, get them some training so that they feel like they're successful and capable and effective. And this is from Bill Mitchell, Alpha Echo Zero, Echo Echo. Nice CW comment. Okay, so let's be creative here. You don't have to go out and operate the whole contest, but how about a club challenge? How about if Team A challenges Team B? Oh, that's kind of fun. What if you create operating boards? And at the end of the year, you recognize members that have operated in 5 contest sponsored events within your group. Give people some strokes for participating and having a good time. They don't have to win. They don't have to get a certificate. If somebody does get a certificate from the contest, encourage them to bring them in and show them. And I can't stress this enough, mentoring or elmering, partner experienced op with the new ham. Back on Vashon Island, we got a lot of new hams out of the CERT training that they wanted to know more about this ham radio stuff, but they really didn't know much about ham radio. So every recruited member that came out of the CERT, they got buddied up with an experienced ham to just practice checking into the net, operating a station, installing something in their car, and after a couple of months, they were capable, they'd overcome their mic fright, and they were regular participants, and they stick with it. That's the important thing. Those people, the goal is to turn them into hams for life, okay, so that they renew their license and they're on the air. Get them some success. Get them flexibility. Get them the know-how that they can say, I can do all sorts of things. They just have to try it. You don't have to sit in the chair for 48 hours. Maybe it's just 6 hours. We had a group of teenage boys and girls, and they had attention spans of about that long. Okay, so we had a program. We said, okay, we're going to all make an antenna. We're going to break up into groups of 3, and each group is going to make a 10-meter dipole. Okay, make the 10-meter dipole. We check it out and say, next weekend, you're all going to go to different stations, and you're going to put up this antenna, and you're going to use it in the 10-meter contest. And it was only, I think it was 4 hours, and so they got on. 10 meters wasn't that great, but they didn't know that, and they contacted Argentina and Texas and California and all these different things. They had a great time, and then we went off and had a pizza party. So short burst, focused training, don't drag it out. You can also host multi-operator contest colleges. Maybe you've got a ham in your group who has a big station. Okay, how about a multi-op? Bring them on over and say, okay, I want you and you. You're going to be over at the station from 10 to 1 o'clock, and then this group is going to be there from 1 to 4. Have these training programs so that everybody gets cycled through with a little chair time, a little Elmer time. Like I said, you can do many field days anytime you want. The field day format is really a lot of fun. Everybody gets used to it. It will breed success, it will breed interest, and people will want to say, okay, well, the weather's changing. What are we going to do now? Okay, well, there's a lot of other contests. Maybe we do them. You can create hybrid events with other activities. We do this thing called geofoxing. It's a little bit like Pokemon Go. We take a geocache, we take a new ham or a non-ham, and say, okay, here's your geocache coordinates, find it. When they go, and we partner them with a ham, and the ham and the non-hams and the new hams, and they all go running off, and they get to the geocache. When they get to the geocache, what's in the geocache? The frequency of a hidden transmitter. Well, now everything switches over to the ham. The ham says, got the radio, got the little 2-meter tape measure Yagi, where's the transmitter? And they go find the transmitter. What's at the transmitter? Another pair of geocache coordinates. So off they go. And this goes back and forth until you run out of transmitters. Hybrid events with driving around, maybe we work in Pokemon, all sorts of different things. It doesn't have to be 100% ham radio. No, yes, it doesn't have to be 100% ham radio. It can be other things that people enjoy, like astronomy, I don't know, whatever. It's a great way to get non-hams excited about ham radio. They like competitive stuff. They understand the game aspect of it, and that you're trying to work all states or work some grids, or you're trying to do this or you're trying to do that, and they get that. They understand that. Use that as an open door to bring them into the hobby. And for new hams, bring them farther into the hobby. These are creative ways of building interest and sustaining interest. Okay. Übung macht den Meister. It means practice makes the master. It's a high school German textbook I had. Okay. Remember the Karate Kid movie where Pat Morita makes the kid, it's like wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. And the kid's like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing it? And all Pat Morita will say, it's wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off. And then finally the kid has to fend off an attack, and he's like, whoa, whoa, like that. Oh, okay. Practice, 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 practice. There's no quicker way to learn and polish these fundamentals of radio know-how than to get out there and using them. And contesting makes you use them. Now, very focused, very short, very intense. It's a workout is what it is. It's challenging. You get the strokes when you see your score come back, when you compare your score to another group, and it's a lot of fun. So it's like a workout, and the idea is, like all the pros tell you, you don't practice so you don't make mistakes. You practice until you can't make mistakes. And a robust operator is an effective operator, is a skilled operator. That's where you're at. So I'd like to thank everybody for their attention, and I'd like to turn it over to Mike to tell me what questions to answer.
Okay, thank you, Ward. And I think you must have covered all the bases, because I don't have any questions that were sent in that weren't already answered. It is late, especially on the East Coast here, so yeah, if you may be asleep. I will say I was glad to see the slide from AE0EE, Bill, and for those listening, he's doing another thing today. He was doing a National Parks activation just a little bit ago. I worked him on 20CW.
Yeah, sure. Why not take your team out and activate an NPOA NPOTA thing?
Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly. Exactly. Just a couple observations, Ward, I'll throw in. And I think anybody that's online knows that one of the must-dos in emergency preparedness and disaster response world is networking. You've got to be pretty well networked. For example, so my job here at headquarters is the emergency preparedness manager. I spend a lot of time talking with other disaster response leaders, but in a wide range of roles. Some do medical, some do sheltering, so some do spiritual care, some do counseling. But that network builds, and that gives you a wider list of allies that's going to help you do your job more effectively. And the one thing I can tell you is from in working with learning from the contesters, participating in a contest occasionally, you're going to get buy-in from general interest hams that you didn't before. They're going to see this as, hey, these guys are more they're not just waiting for something bad to happen. They're out there. They're mentoring new hams. They're getting new folks involved in the hobby. They're reaching out to the technical specialists in the club that they hadn't before. So this buy-in is very important. I heard it one time said when you start expanding your network, the whole goal is to get somebody to answer the phone when you call when they normally would not answer the phone. And that can be applied to so many things that we do. And then the other thing, and I see one question coming in, wallpaper for your EOC. You know, the first certificate I ever got for a contest, I only made like 80 contacts, but it turns out at the time I lived in Indiana, I was the only one that submitted a log from Indiana. So I got this little certificate to hang on the wall. Putting those things on the wall at the station at your EOC gives you another talking point about the capabilities of amateur radio. When non-hams come in and they see this, you can tell them what it took to earn that particular certificate or award. And the same could be worked all states or DXCC or whatever. So let's take a look and see what the question is that just popped up. Let's see. I'll just read this one to you, Ward. I'm a faculty advisor for the NDSU Radio Club. What contest would be appropriate for inexperienced young hams at a university?
Okay. What state was it?
NDSU, so I'm guessing that's North Dakota State.
Oh, okay. You'll be popular, no problem. Get on for the Dakota QSO party. If they have a North Dakota QSO party, definitely activate that. Just get on for, I would say, the state QSO parties. The semester is probably starting in September. If you've got a station with a good antenna, it's fun to work the Oceania DX contest at the beginning of October. The bands aren't open for very long, so it can be a very targeted activity, and you get the excitement of working DX stations overseas. And if that takes, at the end of the month, the CQ Worldwide phone, and there'll be stations from all over the world. And if you get on Sunday, after all the pileups have worked down a little bit and the big stations are looking for answers, you can work a lot of stuff very quickly. There are also a lot of digital contests out there, RTTY, the Rookie Roundup's coming up in August, but that's typically before the school sessions get started. And get everybody excited in your club about the School Club Roundup. Search for it on the ARRL website, arrl.org/school-club-roundup. And it's a full week in October, and there are quite a few college-level clubs that get on. I think we did work the University of North Dakota in February from the high school club that I mentor, so there is some history there, and you'll do very well.
Okay, thank you, Ward.
And North Dakota is a big hit on the bands for sweepstakes.
Absolutely. I did the same from the University of Mississippi when I was there. Putting it on the air for sweepstakes was a huge success.
Yeah, sweepstakes phone is typically the weekend when everybody starts getting ready to take off for Thanksgiving break. So there's typically a little time there. That's a good one. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thanks. I think we have hit all our questions, and just for everybody that has asked, yes, we did record it. It will be on the League's YouTube channel sometime later this week. Ward, any final thoughts or comments?
Nope. I guess I'll be back to working out for the contest fitness program, Mike. See you later.
See you later, Ward, and thank you for joining us tonight on the webinar. Everybody, 73, Ward, and everybody, thank you again for joining us in the upcoming months. We should have some more webinars. If we didn't get to your question tonight, shoot either Ward or I an email, and we'll be happy to answer your question. Coming up in the next few months, we're going to have one that the Red Cross will be hosting on the Red Cross ARRL relationship. The guys from Army and Air Force Mars will be doing a webinar probably sometime in September, and then Salvation Army's Saturn program will be doing a webinar with us later this fall. We hope you join us for those, and thank you, everybody. Good night, and 73 from Newington.